Hey guys, Condavour here. Consider this a little bit of a test video. YouTube apparently has removed my strikes. I still have a warning on the channel, but I'm going to go ahead like nothing ever happened, and we're going to treat this one like a canary in the coal mine. So let's get going. This is a CZ Scorpion. If you aren't aware, I probably shouldn't be allowed to mess with Scorpions anymore, but here we are. We're going to mess with another Scorpion, and I say that because, you know, I've had a history. But we're going to do something weird with another Scorpion. And to be honest, it's not that weird. This is something that the Scorpion carbines actually ship in a configuration like this. We're just going to make it real. So I have a carbine handguard that will fit there. I have a suppressor that just happens to fit beneath it. Now, this is a commercially made suppressor. It even says Silencer Co. on it. It's an Octane 9 commercially made suppressor. This will not work with a non-commercially made suppressor. These instructions are only for commercially made suppressors. So anyway, we're going to make a shrouded suppressor system here. And there's a couple of quirks about that, and I'll get into it. But first off, let's get the gun prepped. So obviously, besides just the parts, we're going to use a 3-lug muzzle device. You'll see why in a little bit. We're going to need a 3-lug adapter. This is a 3D printed one. We're going to see how well this works. It doesn't take a whole lot of force on that adapter, so I think we're going to be okay. And then a long extension. This is way too long. But, you know, an extension to get down into the handguard. We're also going to need a handguard retainer nut. I'm going to use the one that came off of my carbine before. That just retains this handguard onto the Scorpion. We're also going to need this. This is a handguard nut wrench. This will let us get a good grip on that very notoriously hard to remove part, so we can get the original handguard off of the Scorpion. We're also going to use this long, this is a tool designed to use for the carbine to remove the handguard retainer. We're going to use this to install the carbine handguard because it's going to make things easier. And we are going to need vice blocks for our receiver. We're going to be clamping the receiver. Oops. Let me mix them up. We're going to be clamping the receiver in these vice blocks and then throwing it in the vise. Hopefully we'll be able to do it in my light use vise. We might need to throw it in the garage vise and really hammer on it, but we'll see. Anyway, those are the tools, besides a couple like wrenches and stuff, but let's get right into it. So first off, for disassembly, we're going to obviously want to remove the stock, reduce the overall length of this thing. Push the button on the back, push up, stock comes right off. We'll put it off to the side. Remove magazine, check, rear clear. Okay, so lock the bolt to the rear. We can push this pin through, pull it out the other side, pull the lower down and off. Next, I'm going to remove the grip back here. So let me find the right Allen key for it real quick. If you guys ever get a chance to get a set of full Allen keys, or at least a mostly full Allen key set of both SAE and metric, highly recommend it. Comes in super handy when you have weird small size Allen keys for things. Okay, the nut's gonna fall off the bottom there. Pull out the screw. Gonna put those together so we don't lose them. This should just come right off. Yep. Okay. We got those two pieces. All right, next we're gonna have to remove the optic. So I'm gonna grab a bit for that. Now our receiver's starting to get a bit more bare. We're gonna leave the bolt in it for a bit more rigidity when we have it in the vise. But I'm gonna pull the foregrip off as well, just to clear up the front a bit. Okay. Now we're going to throw this in the vice blocks. These vice blocks are pretty simple. They just go on each side of the receiver here. You go make sure they're behind the little sling loops here. We're going to make sure they're set back. And they go on both sides, and they just clamp together using some nuts and bolts. So I'm going to get those set up. You guys probably don't need to see all that. Okay, so I got it in the vice block. I'm going to pull off the muzzle device here. And now you can see where our tool is going to attach here. It's going to hook right over top and go like that. So we're gonna have to crank it that way. Now, I do have a little bit of a bar that we can use. This bar is overkill, but we're gonna try this. I'm gonna take this out to the garage. I got a much tougher vise. This vise is not quite big enough to fit this, so I will be right back. All right, so I got it on my vise that's much better suited for this kind of work, and it's much better secured to the bench. We're gonna throw a wrench on, and we're gonna hope that we can crank this thing off without breaking anything. Oh my goodness. Holy cow. Once again, this is a 3-foot breaker bar. That took a not insignificant amount of force on a 3-foot breaker bar. That is quite honestly ridiculous that it took that much force, but we got to keep working it off. Oh. Okay. And the great thing is that this handguard is cut in a way that you can't just swirl this thing around. We're gonna have to go step by step and keep moving the wrench, keep moving the bar. But at least we're making some progress. Holy cats, that's a lot. That is a lot of thread locker. So we're gonna clean up those threads and let me get you a good look at it. This is just coated in thread locker and it's just falling out in chunks after I got this off. So anyway, now our handguard is only gonna be held on very loosely. We gotta deal with our charging handle, but let's get back inside. All right. So here we are back inside. That handguard removal, that was fun. That was a lot of force. I expect that amount of force with like things like frame bolts on vehicles, not handguard retainers. But anyway, it's off. This is, I think, certainly a case of having the right tools being really handy. If I didn't have the vice block set, if I didn't have this wrench, and I think you'd want to go for the metal one on this one. That probably would have been impossible. So we'll pull this off. We can have our handguard here. Now we need to remove the charging handle from this. We're going to want to reuse the charging handle, and I'm going to take this front sight, but I don't need to show you guys that. That's pretty simple. I hope you guys can figure that one out. Let's see if we can just push this through, if it's going to be mean. Oh, it's going to be a little mean. Okay. So I'm going to grab just a generic brand hammer. We're just going to give it a little tap. It shouldn't take much to move this pin. There we go. Okay. This pin has got a split in it to lock it in, and it's got this little tab. That tab needs to face towards the rear. So we pop that pin out, and you can just pull this out into the rear, and we get our charging handle out. So that's that. I'm going to pull the front sight off that as well, but that's another step for later. Okay, so we need to get this cleaned up. So I'm going to clean that up really quick with a brush and such, and then we will continue. Another thing that came out of that handguard when I pulled it off was this little ring that sits below the actual retainer or retaining nut here. So I'm going to keep this, of course, but we're not going to need it because the carbine one, if you can see, oh, it's hard to see in there. See that little shine in there? Yeah, it's already got a ring inside of it, so it's already got that ring. installed. So here we are at with our clear threads here. We should be able to thread this right on. Yep, it is threading easily, but still very finely. So that should be good. Let me get this out of the way. So all we got to do now is get our little tab things. These are the, I don't know if anyone actually uses these little sling tab things. I think they go one way. Oh no, which way do they go? They go up or down? I'm gonna have to figure that out really quick. I'll be right back. After reviewing the footage, these face up, so we want them both to come up. So I'm gonna put them both in here like so. They fit in there. And we're gonna slide our handguard on over. And see if we can get it to seat. There we go. Using the handle of the hammer there. You can see our color is a little bit off. That is interesting. I didn't think it was that far off on the last one, but that's okay. 50 Shades of FDE. It's in, you know. Okay, so now we got to get our barrel nut installed. Now, I am not going to put any Loctite on this for now. It's not a worry about the muzzle device we're going to put in there, because that doesn't actually seat on this. It seats on its own shelf. So I don't know if I'm going to like this setup or not, so I don't really want to make it permanent yet. So we're going to throw this in here. Just twist this by hand first. Get as tight as we can go by hand. Okay, snagged up. And that actually isn't moving, which is a good sign. So I'm gonna go throw this in the I'm gonna throw this in my light duty vise here. We'll see if we can torque it up a little bit. Now I don't have a torque spec for this, so I am just gonna go for German spec, which of course, if you don't know, it's Guten tight. So we're gonna go for Guten tight. So we're just gonna snug her up reasonably tight. Just remember we're compressing polymer here, so we do not want to overdo it. Okay, that is pretty tight with a 1.5 breaker bar. That should be good. Next up, muzzle device. Now our muzzle's down in there, so this is gonna get a little interesting. So before I said I was gonna use a 3-lug mount, and let me explain a little about my reasoning. With this suppressor, down in this tube, we're looking at sitting right about there. And that's good and all, you know, I got some suppressor I can grab up here, but if things go wrong with the mount back here, I can't really get to it unless this stuff can come off. What's nice about the 3-lug is that I can, if the mount comes loose, I can actually either tighten it using the suppressor itself, or I can just twist it off if the mount comes loose. If one of the internal components here comes loose, I should at least be able to get the can off and then be able to get something down in here to hold on to this piece. And without the can on, there's no spring tension on this piece, so you just have to rotate it until it cleared the lugs, and then it would slide off. So the reason I'm going with 3-lug is because since the can is shrouded so much, I don't have very good access down here, and I don't really want to lose a mount down there and have to cut this to try to get it off. So that's my reasoning. Let's do a quick test fit of our 3-lug mount. It's going to be pretty important that this doesn't move when it's on there. So when we actually install it, we're going to use Loctite. But to start off with, we're going to just throw it in there to make sure that everything threads up and everything looks okay. And I'm going to put a little piece of duct tape over the corner of this, just enough to hold the 3-lug mount in the socket. We do not want it getting into the threads. We just don't want it falling out. Okay. Get it on there. I'm just going to twist. Okay, now we're tight. And I'm just going to give it the lightest touch of force with this. Okay, done. All right, so a very important step of installing a suppressor on anything is checking concentricity. We're gonna do the old school method with a rod. Oh, hit my light there. A rod straight down the bore of the can, straight down the bore of the rifle. And what you wanna see, and this might be a little deceiving on camera, is you basically want to see a gap all the way around the rod. Sometimes your rod might not be perfectly straight, so if you turn it, you just shouldn't be rubbing any of the sides of the hole, and we're not right now. We do have a little play in the rod. This is not an exact deal. We can flip it around and get a sample of the other direction of this rod. We can see that we're not rubbing the sides there. We do have a little bit of variation in the rod. As I turn it, you can see it move a little bit, but we still don't hit the sides. So we should be good to go. It's very important that we check concentricity after we install the muzzle device. This was just a test install, but we're gonna pull it off and I'm gonna do it again. I won't make you guys watch again, but I'm gonna check concentricity again after I reinstall the muzzle device inside the handguard. It's also important to note that you do not want to put a crush washer behind this muzzle device. If you're gonna try to time any of these, you wanna use shims so that it stays even and you don't end up with your can going off one way or the other, especially with a mount like 3-lug where there's a little bit of wobble to it. You really just don't want to introduce problems and you don't want to break your can. So yeah, anyway, let's keep going. I'm going to pull the mount off and we're going to Loctite it in. Okay, so I'm sorry there isn't a whole lot to see here, but basically just going to pop this over the 3-lug and we're going to get it off. And there's our mount. Everything looks good on the threads. Don't see any burrs. Threaded on nice and even. So now I'm going to take Loctite. This is just some removable Loctite. If you wanted to do this permanently, you should probably use Rockset. I do not want to do this permanently because I am not sure if I like this setup or not. So I'm not going to set it permanently until I know that I like the setup. That probably makes sense to most of you. So we'll throw this in our little get up here, and I'm going to throw this piece of tape over one of the lugs again, just to try to keep it from falling out. Now, this time we're going to torque it. And the torque spec that I have for this is about 15 pounds, foot-pounds that is. So I'm going to set my torque wrench to 15 foot-pounds, pop it on the end of this, give her a crank. Oh, I need to reset my vice block. Okay, 15 foot-pounds. Okay, got our clip. And our 3D printed socket did not break. Pretty impressive, that worked pretty well. All right, so all we have left is getting things out of the vice block and installing the charging handle and then reassembling the gun. And of course, I'm gonna check concentricity again, but I won't make you guys watch. So we need to get our charging handle back in its slot. To do that, we're gonna need to pinch this. We're gonna go from the front. It's gonna go click into this little hole. So now we're gonna use this punch to push the little spring so that it can set back. And once we get it, it should pop back. There we go. Now you see it's popped back. Now we can install our forward pin again. And remember, it came from the other side, so we need to make sure it comes from this side. Hold this back and just push it right in. And look at that. Charging handle's in. Good to go on the charging handle. Now all we got to do is pull this out of the vice block and reassemble it. So give me a second, I'll do that. All right, so with the charging handle in, we're out of the vice block. We're all ready to reinstall all of our goodies. So let's get to it. All right, guys, well, it looks like I've answered the question of, can you turn an SBR Scorpion into a Scorpion carbine lookalike? I don't know if I'm gonna like this setup or not. I'm gonna try it and I'll let you guys know how I feel. But it is it is kind of funny to make this look exactly like the Scorpion carbine that has a fake can on it, except this one's a real can. It kind of reminds me of when I go to the range with my MKE MP5 clone with a suppressor on it, and people think it's a GSG 22 because it's so quiet. So I think I'm shooting 22 and not 9mm. I'm guessing this is gonna not get a second look at the range, and then you fire it and they're like, ah, that's pretty quiet for a fake suppressor. So anyway, guys, I hope this was interesting to some of you. I know probably not many of you want to do this. I don't even know if I like this setup yet. So I'm going to mess with it, see if I like it. If I do, it might stay this way. If I don't, well, good thing I kept all the parts and we can put the original stuff back on it. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see y'all later.